Constituency Report is produced as a public service by members of the BC Legislature through the facilities of Shaw TV.
Every British Columbian should be a part of our province's future because everyone in every community matters. That's why we're reaching out to you. I'm Carol James, and this is Constituency Report.
Hello and welcome to Constituency Report on Shaw TV. My name is Edward May, and with us in the studio today is Raj Chouhan, New Democrat MLA for Burnaby-Edmonds and official opposition critic for Labour. Welcome to the set.
Thank you, Ed.
I'd like to start off with the budget. The budget was just introduced recently in the legislature. What's in this budget this year?
Well, I was hoping that there will be something for the people who live in Burnaby-Edmonds. I seriously try to look at it, some positive aspects of the budget, but unfortunately I was very disappointed. There are deep cuts to healthcare, to education, seniors programs. There's a reconfirmation of the government's decision to impose HST.
Right.
So all in all, I didn't see anything which could be very helpful for the citizens in Burnaby-Edmonds. And it's, like, if you carefully read the budget document, it seems like the government has run out of ideas. Like it looked it sounded very tiring, and the minister himself sounded very tired. They really don't have new ideas left. This is the third term, and they're out of steam.
Well, let's tackle these things one by one. Let's start with the HST. Let's start with, again, taking us back to the election, what was originally promised or said during the election compared to what ended up happening.
As we all know, that prior to the last election in May 2009, the Liberals were very clear that HST was not on their radar screen, and they promised they would not bring it. But right after the election was over, and suddenly, here we go, it was brought down. They said it was necessary. They used several excuses to justify their deception. First was they had to do it because of Ontario did it. Right. But Ontario had already discussed in January, December, many months before our last election. Then they came, down with, well, it's not a new tax. It's going to be revenue neutral.
Right.
There's not much, tax burden on the consumer. But then we found out in the last budget that it's going to be earmarked for the health. How on earth they can justify that by saying it will be earmarked for health when they themselves claimed it was a revenue neutral? It's clearly a tax shift from the big corporations onto the big business onto the consumer.
Now, even stranger, recently one of the Liberals in the legislature acknowledged that what a lot of the economists have been saying is that it actually won't pull in, thanks to the exemptions and everything, it actually won't pull in as much as if they kept the PST. So wouldn't that mean if it's earmarked for health that it would actually be a loss?
Exactly. The one estimate was that it will actually bring in 130 million less than it was supposed to bring in. So we would have, that means 130 million more less for healthcare.
Right. Let's talk about who it hurts. If and when the HST is implemented, who is basically going to pay for it?
Well, the government has now indicated that they will table some kind of legislation later on this month. And once it's in place as of July 1st, it will hurt the families, it will hurt the small businesses, it will hurt the social service providers, because when you talk about social service providers in our community, we all have many of these community organizations who do their best, really, working with volunteers, working with the minimum amount of money. Their operating cost goes up. If that cost goes up, that means they would have less money for essential services that they provide. And this is not the time to do it. This is the time when services demand has gone up and going up because of budget cuts, and at the same time government is going to be imposing the HST on top of that, hurting them even more.
You also mentioned it hurting families as well. What does it do to the pocketbook of the average British Columbian?
Well, it's the one estimate was that it could cost any additional cost to the families anywhere from $900 to $1,800, like depending on which services they buy, what kind of goods they buy. So it could be very high. It could be really detrimental to people on a fixed income. Seniors, single parents, and students. It's not going to be good news when it comes into effect.
And you mentioned also that small businesses would be hurt. How do they get hurt through all of this?
Well, look at the prime example is the restaurants. Somebody goes out and certainly would be hit with 7% increase in their taxes, and when you have a 7% increase into the bill, there would be lots of people who may not go out and eat out. So it's going to hurt not only the restaurant, the owner of the restaurant. That means less business. That would have, may even reduce the jobs in the in the restaurant industry. So the overall impact is very negative.
So of course prices go up. That means you have less money to spend and less to buy. Of course, it goes without saying. So what are New Democrats doing to try and stop the HST?
Well, since they brought this idea of HST in last summer, the New Democrats have been very active, very vocal about this. We have been opposing it because this is a wrong tax. It's a tax shift from the business, big business, to the consumer. We have been holding public meetings. We have been holding town hall meetings. I myself have done 2. We did one in November of last year and one on March 11th this year. We are going around all over province. Our leader, Carol James, have been into different communities, and she will be visiting many more communities in the coming months. And when the legislation is introduced in the House, and we will be opposing it, we'll be debating it, and it could take who knows how long, because it needs to be debated properly and thoroughly. And it takes only 7 Liberal MLAs to stand up and show some guts and oppose it, because 82% of British Columbians oppose the HST. That means many of these Liberal MLAs are also representing those British Columbians who are not in favor of the HST. So are they in the House just to toe the line of BC Liberal Party and then their caucus, or they're there to represent their constituents? If they are, then they should stand up and oppose the HST.
So the legislation isn't quite introduced in the House yet. Are you putting the pressure on now, or are you going to wait till the legislation comes forward?
No, we are not stopping. It could be done, tomorrow. Who knows when they introduce? Could be any day. But we are already out in the community talking about the HST, the impacts of it, the increased cost to the consumer. We are going to, we are meeting with students, with seniors, with women's groups, community organizations. Anywhere we can go, we are talking about it. We are not stopping until this is implemented.